I guess go ahead. I got you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The microphone ain't on, man.
It ain't supposed to be on yet.
It's supposed to be on, bro.
It ain't supposed to be on.
Test. Yeah, I'm trying. I gotta be serious, man. I gotta be serious.
You know what she done told you.
I gotta be serious. You said what?
You know what she done told you. All right.
Hey, I gotta be serious, man. Oh, that's much better, man. That's much better. Man. I see you, boy. I see you, Skillet. Get your pen, look. Get your pen, man. Get your pen and your paper. It's gonna be like class, boy. I'm teaching class today. Get your pen and paper, man. Get your pen and paper. So you don't miss this. What's up, Skillet? What's up, homie? Man. Woo. Good evening. I have to do that 49 times. Good evening.
One more.
Good evening.
What happened to being
Good evening. You count? Good evening.
Well, you're going to be in trouble when you get
Hey. Hey, this is Joaquin Thompson, host of the Daily Bread Radio Show, coming to you live from...
Say it.
I can't say it. We got to do a live remote, man. We coming to you live from Snellville. All right, I just said it.
California.
All right, we coming to you live from Snellville. Put it that way. Right outside of Atlanta. We're stone's throw, a long throw, throne's throw. See, I'm trying to be serious. But for those of you that are joining for the first time and don't know about the show, because I've been getting a lot of feedback on Facebook and people reaching out to me, so let me tell you about the show. This is a show about personal finance, and it's personal finance with a spiritual base. Notice I didn't say religion, it's from a spiritual base. So regardless of your religion, because we're not going to get into religion, Buddha, Allah, and anything else that people believe in, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever. We're not getting into that, but what we're going to talk about is personal finance. And everything is tied to personal finance. Everything. So I have to start off every week, let everybody know that's what we're talking about. This is the primary objective of this show. And this is my 49th episode. And why is that important? That's important because next week we're going to be celebrating 50. Man, I don't know why this guy acting crazy. We're going to be celebrating 50. The big 5-0 next week.
Big 5-0.
The big 5-0.
The big 5-0.
The big 5-0. The big 5-0. The big 5-0. I know. People's like, man, he going to quit. He ain't going to make it. He ain't going to make it.
He going to make it.
He ain't going to make it. He going to quit. He going to stop after about 10 shows. He ain't going to do that.
Almost 50.
It's past bad.
Almost 50.
Almost 50.
Y'all better watch out.
Almost 50. You know what they say when you hit 50? You can go into syndication at 100.
Yes, sir.
So super duper excited about next week. So we really going to be putting it down next week. Getting ready for just celebrating 50 episodes. So we're going to do our thing and make sure we come in grand style. Make sure that we celebrate all of the blessings that we've been given and celebrate the information. Because the information that we given is lifeblood. Mm-hmm. It's when you go to church they talk about manna and Rama, mm-hmm. But this is lifeblood. So the stuff that I'm sharing with you all tonight, the stuff I've been sharing over the last 49 episodes, is lifeblood. Meaning, if you take this and put it into action, it can change your life. Literally, like change your life. So we had some testimonials.
Immediately.
Man, you're doing too much.
Immediately.
This, man, you like Puffy, man. Let me do the show, and you. Yeah, but I don't need you doing all that, man. I got this.
What's that dance you was doing earlier?
What?
The dance.
Man, we on the air now. I ain't gonna do the dance, man. I'm not doing the dance. We're gonna stick to the script. I wrote a script out this week, so we're going to stick to the script. So even tonight, look, I'm competing. Look what I'm competing against. I'm competing against the NBA playoffs. They got the draft is tonight. They want to see who's going first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. They try to see, shout out to my man Shaquem. That's the only person that's the only person I'm looking for. Shaquem Griffin, man. Ultimate inspiration out of UCF. So shout out to that brother. Hopefully he'll call into the show. And we're going to just keep it moving. Hey, big brother. Hey. Tell him I'm definitely sending out some special, love to my big brother, as he's, making his recuperation. Make sure you do some, when you get around to it, man, get you some jumping jacks in there. Tell him you want to do some jumping jacks, and so that way you can be ready, brother. But definitely praying for you, keeping you in our thoughts and prayers as you continue to, mend and get through this medical challenge. But super awesome week, man. I mean, just super, super, super sweet. Got some great topics that I want to go over tonight. Number to the show. You put the number in the chat too, because I know people started joining. Number to the show, 678-381-1973. 678-381-1973. Got some great information for you all. Got some things that, I don't have any other way but to say it's life-changing information. Because you all sent me out here last week. I got homework. Y'all sent me with some homework. So we came out the 48th episode, and we had some lingering questions. People wanted to know about protection. I started telling the story about the importance of protection. And people wanted to also know about the infamous credit. Like, people always want to know about credit. How can I get my credit better? What can I do with my credit? My credit ain't strong enough. My credit ain't moving fast enough. My credit, I'm ready to buy a house, ready to buy a car, ready to buy a condo, ready to buy. But my credit ain't where it needs to be. So tonight we're going to talk about credit. We're going to put credit in perspective, because credit is a game, right? That's why I brought my cards out here to show you all something. Credit is a game, right? Just like playing cards, You can, shuffle the deck, and that's really when you don't understand the language, and we're going to talk about that tonight. When you don't understand the language of personal finance, this is what you're doing right here, right? Whatever your favorite card, I know some of y'all play pinochle, tongue, poker, what else, blackjack. It don't matter what you play, because when you start dealing with personal finance, they got something for you. Whether you're trying to get a mortgage, trying to get a car, you're trying to get a payday loan, you're trying to get student loan, whatever you're trying to get, and you want to get into that game, if you don't know the language, this is what you're doing right here. Just what I'm doing. So when you come in and say, hey, I'm ready to buy a car, and they shuffle that deck on you, so they ready for you, right? So that's what they're doing, with your personal finance. But tonight, we're going to jump right into it, because we got a lot of information, but it's only two topics. Two topics tonight, and I'm going to jump right in, because the first one is super, super important. So I want you all, the thing that I'm going to ask, and most of the times on the show, I don't even ask you all to do this, but tonight I am. Get you some paper and a pencil or a pen and take some notes tonight. Let's just have class. This really should be like an online class. And I'm going to walk through some things, and call in with some comments. Or you can put comments in the chat. My producer's, scanning the comments. He'll let me know if you got a question. You can put a question in the chat. You can call in 678-381-1973. But make sure that you are taking notes. Make sure you're taking notes and ask questions. Because the best way to get all of the information is to ask questions. Don't be that student in the class that's sitting there like, what is he talking about? I do not get that, but I'm not going to raise my hand and let these people know. I don't know what the heck is that. Raise your hands. Hey, I don't get it. Because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to just answer the questions that I can answer. The ones I can't, we'll pass them on. I'll bring them back to you next week, right? Because this is about what? Educating, motivating, elevating. Educate, motivate, elevate. Educate, motivate, elevate. So we're going to jump right in. The first thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to pick up where I left off last week. I was talking about protection, right? So if you're in law enforcement, they wear bulletproof vests because you don't want to run up on somebody potentially with a weapon and you don't have no vest on, right? You don't want to, because then you exposing yourself to being harmed. You pull somebody over the traffic stop, they get out, start blasting. You don't have no vest. You know, they're going to say, why you ain't having no vest? It's a potential that people shooting.
Exactly.
Right?
In this day and time.
Hey, so that's protection. Riding a motorcycle, enjoyable. A lot of friends got them. Everybody, you know, up in that 285 with 20, I-20, coming from DeKalb County going the other way, always seeing somebody going 150, 200. Always. But we have a helmet law here in Georgia, and in Florida, you don't have a helmet law. So in Florida, you can ride a motorcycle with no helmet. But the helmet is protection. Because the helmet is saying, even if you fall and you have a cherry or a strawberry or a scrape or scab from your foot all the way up to your head, if you got on a helmet, that right there that's the last part that you want to save is what? The brain. As long as your heart beating and you got your brain working, you would come back. But if you want to be super duper and don't have on no protection, you can have that same fall and you out of here. Because when that asphalt starts skinning on your head, it'll skin right down the I'm just telling you, bro. Do the math. You going 100 miles an hour and you fall on a motorcycle. Remember when you fell off a bicycle?
Yeah.
You were limping. You were walking like this on a bicycle. You matter. So you got to have protection. Told you the story about the young lady falling in the circus. Fell 30. I mean, that was suspenseful. No net. She doing the trapeze. She falls. Bam. Hits the ground. But here's the thing. She had no protection. So that's just the perfect segue. And what I want to talk to you all tonight about is life insurance. Life insurance. And I've been doing a lot of research the last like 4 or 5 months on life insurance. And the reason I think it's becoming full circle because everything that I'm doing in personal finance, all of the research that I'm doing, credit, debt, budgets, debt elimination, you know, removing interest, improving, all of this. But then when I landed on life insurance, then it became like, oh, this is serious, right? And I don't normally advise people on life decisions, but on this one, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm not going to advise, we're just going to have a conversation about it, right? The first thing, let's talk about the first thing about life insurance. A couple of statistics. 314, just do the numbers, right? I'm a numbers guy. Just do the numbers. We don't have to get into, because most times when people start having a conversation, they want to get into what it's not and why they don't need this or that, or you should get this or that. Look, we're not going to have that conversation. The conversation is going to be this. It's about 315 million people in the United States, right? Do the numbers. 315 million people in the United States, and it's estimated that somewhere between 65, listen to this number, somewhere between 65 and 70% of all of the people in the U.S., men, women, and children, either have no life insurance or they're underinsured. So what does that mean? That means that if something was to happen to you today or tomorrow and you have no life insurance, that's a problem. And that's a problem for your family. So as I'm starting to have this conversation with my friends and family, people that are close to me, this is the type of conversation that you have out of love, right? This is love. This ain't, I'm trying to get something from you. This is love. This is like saying, man, protect yourself, right? When you go outside at night, go into a well-lit area. If you with young ladies, don't go traveling by yourself. That's love, right? Having these tough questions, having these tough conversations with family and friends, people that you love, we need to be asking that question. So 314 million, 70% of the people either have no life insurance or they're underinsured. It estimates that 52 million people, listen to this number, 52 million people have an annual income between 50,000, because one of the, I guess you would say, myths is, I don't make enough money. Okay, so the research says that 52 million people in the U.S. make between $50,000 a year and $250,000 a year, right? Between $50,000 a year and $250,000 a year. and they have no insurance. They have no life insurance. $50,000 to $250,000 annually. So that means that's every 12 months, and they have no life insurance. Right? Now, the other part is you have a lot of people that's under the threshold of $50,000 a year. They estimate that to be about 90 million people, right? In aggregate, when you add up everybody. And notice this don't have nothing to do with race. They just saying people. Now we just talking about people. People in the U.S. 92 million people that make under $50,000 a year with no life insurance, right? So my thing is this: when you start talking to people about life insurance, the funny thing is, first thing people start telling you is what you need. What you need is term. That's what you need. You need term life insurance. What you need is whole life. What you need is, and I'm like, this is one of those conversations where it ain't about term or whole life. What you need is, we need to fill in the blank with that. What you need is some life insurance first, right? So this is one of them type of deals where, say somebody broke into your house, right? And you in the house. Somebody break in the house, bam, kick the door in, and you in the house. Now if you downstairs and you got a pistol, right? And the pistol right by the couch, boom, you ready, right? But if that same thing happened, bam, boom, they kick the door open, and the only thing close to you is you don't have your pistol downstairs, your pistol upstairs. But you got a knife, you got a sword, you know what I'm saying? You got a board, you got a bat. It don't matter. I need something to help me fend off this person. I need to be ready. Or you may be skilled in the arts, right? You may know how to grab a joker.
Lord, here we go.
All right, I'm good. Look, we doing good. But you may know how to do some hand-to-hand combat. So, but the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, term or whole life don't matter. We need to get some things in place. In place. We need to get some things in place. If you own a house or you aspire to buy a house or you have some, assets, it may not seem like a lot when we're doing things day to day, right? But if something happens to you and you still owe a creditor on a mortgage or a car note or you still got a student loan, you shouldn't be leaving like, I'll be gone and y'all do what y'all want to do with that. No, they extended you credit on these loans based on you enter into an agreement or a contract with them to say, if you give me this, I will give it back to you. I will give it back to you regardless if I live or die. I will give it back to you, right? So that's how you live with honor, right? So you need to be honored even if something happens to you. Put yourself in a position where it's like, man, that's messed up, man. Ooh, man, I can't believe she gone. I can't believe he gone. And then the next thing is, but she left with things in order. It's in order. It's not chaos. It's not, hey y'all, let's get together and that's the work. You already grieving. Why we put extra pressure on everybody about, all right, well, do we have a funeral? She always wanted a funeral. And then the other person like, funeral? You know what I'm saying? It's like, somebody gonna say that, right? Like, that's after you had the conversation, like, because people want to know, right? Like, what did they have a policy? That's when they start saying, did they have a policy? Mm-hmm. Did they have? Hey, I'm gonna get some cobbler, but did they have a policy? Mm-hmm. Right? And there don't have to be that's the other thing people get twisted up in is like, you don't need no gigantic policy. they have something that's called a final expense policy, right? A final expense policy. What's that? What's a final expense policy? Just that. You don't need, okay, I'm not saying you leave, you don't have to leave a J.R. Ewing type of, if you choose to, then do so, right? If you feel the need, like, hey, I got a $500,000 policy, I got $1 million policy, great. Because that'll be, I'm gonna go into that too, but the main thing, let's keep the main thing the main thing. Let's keep the main thing the main thing. So let's start off with final expense policy. Okay, what's that? Final expense policy is just that. If you feel like you want to have a funeral, if you feel that you would like to have a funeral, or you may say, well, hey, you could cremate me, right? Okay, got it. But one thing that we know is 314 million people in the U.S. 314 million. And here's one thing that's absolute. This is the absolute truth. This ain't like speculative. This is not, I think so. This is the absolute truth. All 314 million men, women, and children at some point will transition from this earth plane. That's factual. So that's the facts. So if you know that, put something in place. Hey, got a final expense policy, even in our 50s, right? Some of our friends in our generation, they're in their late 40s and their 50s. Final expense policy, maybe $50, $60, if that, right? 50, $60 a month. Could be cheaper, could be $40 a month, depending on your health, if you smoke, if you don't smoke. But then you cover it. That way, everything's in order. It's orderly. That's step one. Get you a final expense policy. I would love to, okay, I get the creditors, I get the, hey, I want to cover you, but based on our situation and our financial needs and what we have in place, it's best to take care of you first. And you want to be cognizant to that contract, but if you don't have the means to do so, cover yourself, right? And let Bank of America and Wells Fargo, let them be pissed off about it, but they'll be all right. They'll get over it, right? But final expense, if nothing else, start doing some research to find out what can you do to put a final expense policy in place. So that way you cover. You can have a funeral, cremation, party, repast, what have you, but you cover, right? You cover. But if you feel like you're in a financial position where you can go to the next level, like what I'm talking about, which is, now you want to have the ability to put something aside or away for the next generation, then you could look at a more expensive policy. You might want to look at a, 100,000, 200,000, 250,000, 300,000. You could look at that. Then at that point, you say now you're going into your legacy, right? And here's where a lot of people that, may say, well, hey, I don't have a big income. Okay, that's cool and all, right? But again, we know at some point in time, the time we don't know, but we do know at some point in time, right? So you got your final expense, so you say, I got a little bit more, okay. Seek out a professional and say, hey, I want to get a policy because I want to make sure my son has this. I want to make sure my daughter I always want to make sure my grandkids go to college. I want to make sure. So then you can get a higher policy, 100,000, 200,000, 300. You choose the number. You look at the premium. You decide what's best for your budget. And don't let nobody sell you on nothing. Don't let nobody tell you, oh, you need to have this or that or the other. The only thing is you just want to get yourself out of harm's way so that way you can say, well, for me, I know for me in my situation. Because some people married, some people single, some people, everybody got a different situation. So you have to really sit down and do what's best for you. Now, the other thing that came up in the research, and I see some young people on, so, special shout out, James Cushion, I see you, Pat, see you, I see my son on, I see my wife on, beautiful wife, Tanya. Thank you all for joining. I see Teresa on, some other people, as you all are scrolling through. So, but one of the things, we all in different situations, so it don't really matter. But the point that I'm trying to get across is, it's nothing like having protection. It's nothing like going out the house and you got that vest on, so now you covered, right? You putting auto insurance on your car because it's the law, right? But we put other things in place that are really not essential to our well-being, like cable. Think about this. The average cable bill in the U.S. is like $125, $130, right? The average, and that's a month. So some people are paying $125, $130. I know some people, they're paying almost $200 a month for cable. $200 a month for cable, and don't have no life insurance. So just marinate on that for a little while. Like, you know, when you say I love my family, I will protect them, I will go to, you know, to the grave for them, then okay, if you love them, let's start working together and protect them. We need to protect our families. We need to protect them and protect our livelihood, because in the event that something happens and you leave a loved one behind, a spouse, or you may have a parent that you're caring for, you may, you know, we got all kinds of situations. Go ahead and put that little bit of money away and start planning for that. Another thing that, you know, life insurance can do for you as well is it can help you as you get into your retirement years. You know, you can leverage some of the, you know, options that's in your life insurance policy to help with your retirement. You may not have a pension. You may not have been in the military and, you know, you get all your health care for the rest of your life and you just go to the base and, you know, or go to the VA. You know, some people have to still, you know, when you retire, and here's the thing, I talk to people all the time, and me too, me talking to myself, I was one of them type of people who said, man, I got life insurance through my job. Okay, that's good and all, but what happened if the job, you don't have a job no more? Or you age through your job and you get to the point where you retire. They ain't gonna give you life insurance when you retire, because when you retire, now you don't have no coverage, right? The other thing that I've been finding out in the research is this. It's better to get it, you know, while you're young and you don't have all, and you don't have all them, you know, all them different potential issues with your health, right? High blood pressure, diabetes, had a heart attack, had a mini stroke, you know, had this, you know, when the wheels, when the bones start creaking, because the insurance company's trying to do what? They not trying to cover something where they think that they're gonna have to pay immediately, right? So while you're a little younger or in better health or getting into better health, that's the time to go through that process. So that way, as you're going through your physical and they're checking your blood work and you're doing everything, and you like a well-oiled machine. You just like boom, boom, boom. I'm right through that. I got it, or I had it in place for a while. So as you age, you don't have to worry about that, because we all know as we age, things are going to happen. It's just like, it's natural. That's the natural progression of life. Just as we age, things are going to tend not to work the way that they used to work. So we just saying, hey, you know, have a policy in place so that way that as you age and as, you know, you're working throughout your life and you know, and aging through your life, that's something that you want to have in place. Is just, you know, be able to have that security to say, you know what, it may not be much, right? Because it ain't about the amount. But if something happens to me, I'm covered. You all don't have to worry about no passing hat. You don't have to worry about no asking people for nothing. And that's what, and I've seen this is on several occasions with friends and family. It's nothing better in life in getting to a person's to their final moment, and you can look back on it and say, you know what? It wasn't like $30 left after we did everything, but we did it. We did it. We did it for him. We did it for her. You know, got everything done. You know, covered all of the expenses, and we got $30 left. Oh, cool, right? Because there's nothing promised to any of us, but you know, if we have the ability to do it, then we'll leave a little extra. You know, but if not, so be it. We've taken care of our responsibility, which is us, right? But you know, but if you do get into a situation where you feel like you have some additional discretionary income, definitely seek out a professional where you could, you know, have that conversation and start putting things in place so that way you covered. Like, hey, I can travel in peace, I can sleep in peace, I'm not worried about nothing. And when people start trying to tell you what you need to get term, you need to get whole life, you need to get this. No, you need to get something first. And then after you get something, then you start looking at a combination, because the thing that I've learned in this short period of time that I've been studying this topic is that, you know, with term, it's cheaper, but it's for a specified period of time. So if it's for 25 years and you live 30 years, you know, trying to get life insurance at 77, 78, that can be a challenge, right? That could be a challenge, because you might say, well, hey, I could qualify for the physical. A lot of companies they won't even write a policy on a person over 70. And if they do write it on a person over 70, they try to make it so expensive where it's like, it ain't, you paying more than the policy is worth. So it's just something to kind of be forward thinking and say, you know what, I could pay this policy. And this is something that I learned too. They have policies where you could pay into for 10 years. It's called a 10 pay. They have a 10 pay, they have a 20 pay, I think a 25 pay. But I know they have those three because I had some research done and some what they call illustrations done as far as what you can and can't get in those. And with a 10 pay, it's just that. You pay your premiums on this policy for 10 years, right? So you pay it for 10 years, and then after you pay it for 10 years, at that point you stop paying, but guess what? You still have coverage through the age of 121. Oh, we got a caller. Caller, you on the air. This is Joaquin with the Daily Bread Radio Show. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Brian calling from Jacksonville, man. You know what it is?
That's what I'm saying. We got a group. Hey. So y'all down there lighting it up?
Oh yeah, we chopping it up, boy. And it just did. The Pacers just drafted a new rep.
That's what's up.
Hey, I love you, man.
Hey, love you too, boy. Love you too,
Yeah,
man.
everything good. Hey, what I have to say is sick, though, man. I just want to chime in, man, and just say all this to the listeners of the Daily Bread Radio Show.
Okay.
Soak in the knowledge and keep it moving.
That's it. That's it, brother. That's it. What's up, Angie, baby?
Hey, we doing it in live mode, yeah, but everything's good though, man. I just want to chime in, man, and see what's happening.
Okay. Hey, you know what we're doing? Because we don't miss. We don't miss.
All right, push up.
All right, brother.
Much love.
Much love to you too, baby.
Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, push up.
One.
All right. One.
But yeah. So they what's up with the microphone, bro? Got the microphone up. I told you about that chatting on the phone too while we doing the show. But yeah, definitely give some more thought to some life insurance, and you know, make sure that you, because I'm gonna go ahead and end this topic with this, and I'm gonna say it like this: don't be mad at me if I'm asking you, right? Because if I love you, if I say I love you and I don't ask you, then we need to have a different conversation. But if I say I love you, I'm gonna ask. Now, if you say, well, hey man, go on with that, or I ain't got time for that right now, or I'm good, or put me in a box, and then okay, that's cool. But at least for my conscience, I'll be able to say, hey, I did check on everybody, and I want everybody checking on me too, right? You know, because as a people and as a community and as humans, this is not about race and class and sex. This is about people. This is about people helping people to move into a positive direction. People helping people. And that's what the Daily Bread Radio Show is about. This ain't about, you know, one group or another group or young or old. This is about taking some knowledge, being exposed to something, and taking that and going to another level. Just taking it and implementing it within your family, right? So everybody got policies in your family, and we all cover, and we all doing good, and you know that way we can move forward with doing things in an orderly fashion. So that's life insurance for this evening. Now we're gonna get into everybody's favorite topic, credit.
Credit.
Man, it's so dry in there, man. I had to get something to drink. But
Credit.
had to talk about some credit. But the good thing about credit is this. Credit is one of those topics you can't talk about credit too much. Because sometimes people say, man, that's all y'all talk about is credit. Sometimes that's all we need to talk about, right? Because credit credit is like the I guess you would say it's like the cog. Like everything else kind of emanates from credit, and it goes from there. Case in point, I was talking to a guy the other day about a young man. He's a celebrity or, high-profile individual, what have you. Got a lot of cash, got a tremendous amount of cash, like cash on cash, right? Wanted to buy a house, saw a nice house he wanted to get, saw a house he was like, hey, I want to get this one for me and this one for my mom. But the problem was he was cash on cash, but he didn't have enough cash to go in and just buy it all outright, because the house he wanted to buy was, say, 1.5 or 2 or something along those lines, and he had maybe $800 in cash, but he needed to get a mortgage. Couldn't qualify because he had no credit. He had a bunch of cash, but he had no credit, like zero credit. So guess what? The banks ain't gonna do that, because credit is like it's like your brand and your reputation. That's the way that credit came about, because for those of you all that are old enough, you remember. I remember when my grandmother used to go to the store, and she didn't have no credit card, but the guy, Mr. Jim knew my grandmother, and he knew my grandmother. If she said, hey, I need to get a dozen of eggs and some sugar and some flour, and I'll pay you on Friday, Jim was good with that, because she had completed that process multiple times where she said, hey, I'm going to pay you on Friday, and she paid, and she paid, and she paid. So she would go in. She didn't have a credit card or a debit card, but she was able to go in and tell Mr. Jim, like, hey, I'm going to pay you on Friday. So over time, what happened was credit, the history of credit came about because everything started moving so broadly that the Mr. Jims of the world couldn't keep up with everybody, right? So you might pay Mr. Jim, but then you go across town and you use that same line on somebody, and you know that you don't really have the means, because I'm going to keep it clean. I'm not going to say you did it intentionally, but you may not have had the means to repay Mr. Steve or Mr. John, right? But Mr. John come Friday, Mr. John looking for you now. You're like, man, look at this joker. I done gave him, bread and milk and eggs to feed the kids. He got them kids at home. I didn't want the kids to be hungry. But now they ain't come back and pay him. So then that's when the credit bureaus came about. Like, hey, we're going to keep track of everybody's stuff, and it's going to be electronic, and we got millions of people in the system, and so on. So that's just a little bit about the history of credit, but it's fascinating to me about credit and what you can do with it. I've written articles, a long time ago, before 45 even got into office. I was reading one of his books, and he was talking about the power of having access to credit versus just having a bunch of cash. Because very wealthy people, they have a certain amount of cash, but the access to credit gives them the ability to leverage against different things, like if they're going to buy a building or build a stadium, big things. So we bring it down to a smaller level, then like, hey, as you are able to accumulate or get approval for larger and larger credit apps, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. I know some friends of mine that were, in the real estate industry. They got to a point where they were getting lines of credit for, $150,000, $200,000. So they were able to go buy properties, fix them up, still have working capital if they needed to hold the property for a little while. But they were able to build lines of credit in excess of $150,000, $200,000. So, so tonight we want to talk about credit. And the thing about credit, people ask me all the time, like, how can I improve my credit? And, what do I need to do? And how do I get started? I believe on the Daily Bread Radio Show in the basics. Everything we do on the Daily Bread Radio Show is just the basics. It's all about the fundamentals of everything. Because if you get good, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you play the piano, if you play the guitar, if you cook, if you swim, if you play basketball, the draft tonight, football. I don't care what you do. Run a radio station, ballerina, teacher. I don't care what area that you're in. If you master the fundamentals of your craft, if you master the fundamentals of your craft, if you practice the fundamentals of your craft, right? Like I was working with my grandson the other day. He's 7. I'm trying to teach him how to dribble and put his guard up so people won't steal the ball. What do he want to do? He want to go through his legs, go around his back. I said, you need to just dribble first. I just need you to just dribble. And it's the same thing when it comes to personal finance. So I stress the basics. So when it comes to, when you start talking about credit, it's 5 aspects of credit. And everybody got access to the internet, but take the time, like when I start off the show and I said you should be writing these things, take the time to find out the 5 components that make up your credit score. Take the time to find that out. Why is that important? That's important because if you playing, here go a deck of cards, right? If you playing a certain game, now this is the same deck of cards, but these cards could be used to play poker or they could be used to play bid whist. Both of them games have 2 different sets of rules, right? Or they could be used to play blackjack. Same cards, right? But I need to know the fundamentals, which is what? I need to know the difference between 9 of diamonds, hearts, clubs. That's going to make a difference, right? In poker or in spades or any other card game. You need to know the basics. The basics is what's a face card, what's a king, what's a queen. It may sound simplistic to you because you're like, everybody know that. No, everybody don't know, right? Especially when you start talking about playing for high stakes. Like you go on a cruise ship or you go out to Vegas and you see guys, like when you at home, you playing for nickels and dimes. You go out there and you see somebody put, $25,000 down on a hand of blackjack. You need to know what you're doing, right? And you may say, I would never do that. But you're doing it when you buy that car. If you buy a car for $25,000 and you don't understand the basics of personal finance, you're going to get your head torn off. And that's what's happening every day, day in and day out, because people are not taking the time to learn the basics. Learn these 5 basics. So the first one is, and I'm going to give you each one of the 5, and I'm going to spend a little time on each one of them. If you have a question or concern, you can put it in the chat. You can give us a call. What does he say?
Let me get it for you.
Yeah, because I'm like, man, what's the basics? Oh, I couldn't see that far. I'm sorry. I'm going to give them to you. Sarah. But let's start off with number 1. The number 1 basic, right? The number 1 basic, and this is the 5 components that go into your credit score. The first one is accounts owed, right? Some people call it the number of accounts. Some people call it the amount of debt. It's in simplistic form. How much do you owe, period? And you fill in the blank. How much do you owe? How much do you owe? Some people owe 5,000. Some people owe 10, 100, 300, 900, a million point, 1.2, 10 million. It just goes on and on and on. But for you, your individual, the first component is how much do you owe? How much do you owe? Why is that important? That's important because, take notes on this. This is 30%. I'm a credit specialist. Check out my site. We're calling to the show, Odell. We ain't promoting. I mean, this family. So you can call into the show. Send me your information. I'll have you come on. We'll interview you. We love that. We love it. I mean, call in. 678. No, don't call in right now. Don't call in right now. Hold on. Because we got some time left, and I'm going to give out the basics. But so you'll know, Odell. You can comment or you can call in, but you can reach out, inbox me, what have you. We can have you come on, and I would love to interview you so that way, as a credit specialist, we need more people like you in our midst anyway, so that way we can learn how to play the game right? We can learn how to play the game right with these deck of cards. But the first one is, and that's 35% of your credit score, the amount that you owe, right? How much do you owe? 35%. Appreciate it, Odell. That's 35% off the rip, before you even get into the other 4. That's 35. I didn't say a third. That's 35% of your credit score right there. Why is that important? Because creditors are looking at your utilization. A lot of times people's like, what do you mean utilization? They look at how much credit that you have, how much you owe, and how much of that have you utilized For example, you may owe $1,000 and you may have access to 1,000. But if you've already used 900 of that 1,000, you at a 90% utilization. You want to get down to like 30%, 25. The lower you can get below 30, you're going to get them points back in your score. It's going to help your score be a lot healthier, right? The first component, amount owed and utilization. Do some research on it. Take the time and practice. Practice. Just like I was listening to Allen Iverson coming out here tonight. Practice. This is what we talking about?
Practice.
Is this what we talking about? Practice? We talking about practice? You talking about practice?
Man, what?
You talking
about the
yeah, practice. Practice understanding the components of a credit score. Why is that important? Because as you get into these different games with these people, the banks, the mortgage company, the real estate agent, all these other, the credit card company, you'll know why you need to do certain things and how you can move your score and protect your score as you're doing different things. So that's component number one, which is how much do you owe? The second component, payment history. This is the two, some people call it a two-piece. Sometimes, when you get into altercation, we were talking about earlier, if you got a pistol, then you can use your pistol. But sometimes, like when they train Marines, they don't train a Marine to say, oh, if he may not be far enough for you to get no rifle. This might be hand to hand when you got to put your hands on somebody, and they teach Marines how to disable a person. Notice I said it don't always have to be a kill, but they are trained to contain and disable you. They will disable you. They know how to. They train people how to disable you. That might be a chop to the throat. It might be a chop to the throat. When we were short, it might be a punch in the chest. Might be a punch in your goddamn stomach, or a kidney punch. Or it might be up here. You could break that orbital bone or their nose. That's just to disable. They're not killing you, but bam, disable. You need to be the same way with your credit. Payment history. Now, just these two components. Listen to this. Listen to this. The amount that you owe is 30%. Your payment history is 35%. 30 and 35%, that's 65% of your credit score right there. Even if I said, you know what, we ain't even going to go into the other three tonight. We're going to say that for next week, right? Even if we don't talk about nothing else, the amount that you owe and your utilization and your payment history, why is that important? That's important because it's 65% of your credit score. It's 65% of what you're doing. It just makes sense. So if you know that, if you know these two components, as you're doing things, you are going to be super, hyper sensitive to not having any late payments. Because a late payment is like a fresh cut, right? A twisted ankle, more like a twisted ankle. You ever been playing basketball or something? Oh, no, this is the worst one. Not when you're playing basketball. The worst one is when you coming out of church. You ever been coming out of church and you talking, running your mouth, and every church that I ever been in, they got one little piece of sidewalk that's like a step down. And if you ain't paying if you're not paying attention and you step on part of that and it tweak your ankle, you say, ooh, I done seen women do it, men. Every church I done been to, I done seen. Growing up, I used to be laughing, like, oh, look at that. Oh. It's the same way. But when you first twist your ankle, sometimes it swell up. Sometimes you can't walk on. You got a limp. It's the same thing with a payment. If you get a 30-day late, oh my goodness. Oh my, that's like getting a goddamn, you know what I'm saying? Like the people's elbow. That's like, man, like a slap. Heck yeah. That's 30 days. You mess around and get a 60-day, 90. Bruh, you in trouble. You digging a hole that's going to take some time to get out of. And guess what? While you digging that hole, it ain't no instant, like you just going to jump out and be like, boom, my credit score back up. Because you know what creditors are saying? Like, ooh. And everything is so connected now. They done got so gangster with it. Now, it used to be, I'm going to tell y'all something. A lot of people don't realize this because it may not have never happened to you. But like I've already shared with y'all, I'm going to be fully transparent. I done had all kinds of things happen to me from a financial standpoint, and I'm not proud of it, but I learned from it. Do you realize that sometimes you can have a card with company A and be paying them on time, no problem, everything good, and then company B, you had a 30-day late, a 60-day late, 90-day. Do you realize that company A will find out about that, and you know what they'll do? They'll suspend your privileges. You'll be going to use your credit. Say, hey, why? Say, because it's now what they're saying is, if I see it over here, it's just a matter of time before it comes to me. It's like watching the news, right? It's a storm coming. It ain't hit me yet, but it's coming. They will cut your stuff off. They will cut it off because you was late on somebody else's stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's 65% of your credit score. So if you're trying to manage your credit, you have to pay on time. If you borrow, you have to pay on time. Unless you have a really, 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 really dire situation like medical, divorce, something came up, something catastrophic. Okay, I get that. Because we've all had those situations in life. But I'm talking more to like you managing and you juggling and you have to pay. You have to pay. If you don't do nothing else, you have to make them payments. Because once you start missing them payments, that credit score is gone. You can cancel that for a while. You're gonna be on the IR for a while. You're gonna be on injured reserve. You ain't gonna be in the game. So that's the second component. Third component, credit history. Credit history. They want to know how long have you been in the game? How long have you had credit established? 3 months? Now you asking me for $15,000? I don't know what you're gonna do. 6 months? Now you want $10,000? They want to see long histories. I mean long. They want to 18 years, 19. And every time you open up a new account, you bring your age. Listen to what I'm saying. You bring your overall age of your credit down. Because now you got a new account. It's like a new baby. We were age. Now they bring you all the way back. So, okay, we got to factor that in too. You got all of these accounts, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 18, 19. Oh, you got a new loan. It goes averages into that. Length of credit. Why is that important? Because I need to know what you gonna do with what I give to you. I can't give you $25,000 and you only got a year's worth of credit history. I don't know what you're gonna do with the money. You might just burn out, right? So it's just risk. Everything is risk. That's all it is. It's just risk. Who's holding the risk? The bank or you? The bank or you? Or whoever the credit is. So the third component, credit history, that's worth 15%. Now just them 3 components. I'm going to give you the other 2, but just those 3, that's 80% of your credit score. 80. So if you just manage those 3, right? Utilization, how much you owe, your payment history, and your credit history, right? Your length of time that you've had. If you just manage those 3, that's 80% of your score. 80, right? So number 4 and 5, I'm going to bucket them so we can get to real quickly, how you can improve your score, right? So number 4 is new credit. New credit is 10%. What's new credit? I just told you. You went out, got a new Macy's card, I got a new, credit card. Okay, I just opened up a new account. I just bought a car. Every time that you just get a new account, that's what it is. Recently opened lines of credit. 10% of your score. Not going to do a whole lot of harm. And your score, you'll notice your score dip a little bit when you first get something, but it's almost like a buoy. Your credit's still strong, but if you get something new, it'll dip and go back up. It'll dip, go back up. So that's 10%. And then the last component is what we call credit mix. Credit mix is different types of account. Creditors want to see how you manage different types of account. Because you might be able to pay, installment loans where you just paying 50, but you don't know how to manage revolving credit. So then they like, okay. So they want to see installment, they want to see revolving, they want to see auto loans, they want to see mortgages, because it just gives you a more broad picture as to what you're able to manage overall. So those are the 5 components of credit. And then rolling into, people always want to know, how do I improve my credit? I just gave you the answer. Learn the fundamentals of what's included in your credit score. Learn the fundamentals. You know what that's like saying? That's like saying, how I score a touchdown. How you score a touchdown? Learn the fundamentals. Punt, pass, and kick. Block and tackle, right? That's how you score. How do you stop them from scoring? Block, and tackle. Block and tackle. You don't have to get fancy with it. You don't have to go into Jetstream, 5-0, sweep dive, double R, Z, drag right. Block and tackle. That's all you got to do. Block and tackle. Punt, pass, and kick. So it's the same thing with your credit, right? So if you know the fundamentals, if you know it's all about how much you owe in your utilization, if you know you need to keep your utilization under 30%, if you know it's all about, paying on time, your payment history, if you know it's all about your credit history and the length of time that you've had it, if you know it's about the new credit, if you know it's about the credit mix, then you start to manage those components. So when you're ready to improve it, the first thing I say is learn the basics. The second thing I say is stop spending. Because what I find with most people, they saying they haven't made the decision to improve. They say, I want my credit to go up, but I'm still buying stuff. No, stop. Just stop. Third thing is you have to develop what I call your discipline muscle. You have to develop your discipline muscle. What's the discipline muscle? A discipline muscle is this. When you can't buy something, when you don't have access to it, you don't need discipline for that, right? Because you don't have access to it. You can't do it, right? So if you can't purchase something for $10,000 because you never had access to it, that don't take discipline. What takes discipline is you've been working on your credit, you go in and you get approved for a line of credit, and they say, hey, you approved for $10,000, and you've never managed $10,000 worth of credit before, you're going to need some discipline muscle, because first thing you're going to think, I could buy this, I could buy that, then I'll just pay it back. Then you're in trouble. That's why when you see people winning the lottery, studies have shown people who win the lottery, some crazy number, 75% of them end up with more debt than they had than before they won the lottery. Because they don't know how to manage money, then it just spirals out of control. Then you end up with a whole bunch of stuff that you can't manage anyway. So that would be number 3. Fourth thing would be eliminate. Start to eliminate debt as quickly as possible. Get it off your plate. Get your payment history tight. Get your utilization down. Start eliminating debt. Eliminating debt so that way you can have greater opportunities in the future. And then the fifth thing that most people don't talk about, and I've always found that there's a need for this when you want to improve your credit, especially if you want to improve it pretty quickly. You need to have another source of income. You need to be able to generate some additional money so you can start to pay things down. Because sometimes you just tread water for years. You just what we should call dog paddling, right? You just tread. You ain't swimming, you ain't going forward, you ain't going back, but you just, But after a while, it don't take but one thing, and then you just go right down. So you need some additional money, part-time job, something that you can sell, cut some yards, do some dinners, do something, but you're going to have to generate some additional income. And that would help you improve your credit. So hopefully that blessed somebody tonight. I know we're right at the top of the hour, so I'm going to be respectful of everybody's time, everybody that joined tonight. I appreciate you. Odell, make sure you reach out to me, man. Make sure you like the page. And let's get together, do some good stuff, because, we definitely doing some great things over here on the Daily Bread Radio Show. So the book, got 2 books. I usually do 1 book of the week, but this week I had to do 2 because I had 2 different things on my mind. This one is a good book. It's called Smart Money Secret, and the authors are Scott and Allison Hilton. Now, the funny thing about this book, they selling it, it's a little paperback. They selling this book for like $35. And I said, $35? Why would I buy it? Like, this little thing, it's like $150. It's $35, right? But here's the thing about what's in here, right? The question that you have to ask yourself is this. If I paid $35 and I found out one thing in this book that could help me improve my credit or eliminate debt or some loophole that I could use, would it be worth it? Would it be worth it, right? So that's what you have to ask yourself. At first I said, I'm not paying $35, but you see the book in my hand, and I've read it. Some great information for some people who, not quote unquote like, hey, we experts, but The husband used to work at one of the credit bureaus, so he goes into a lot of detail about how things are electronic, people not reading them, ways you can get around things. And you're not trying to, game the system. What you're trying to do, though, is be educated about how the game really works. You want to be educated because they're educated about you, so you want to be educated about them. So definitely, if you get opportunity, Smart Money Secret, you can Google it, pick it up at Amazon, or you can go to their website and pick it up. The other book that I wanted to bring in tonight, this is a classic, and I want everybody to, definitely consider picking up this book. It's called Seeing the Big Picture. Seeing the Big Picture. And this one is by Kevin Cope, C-O-P-E, Seeing the Big Picture, right? This book is so deep because what this book does is, this is the easiest book to understand how money works, what's really profit. He wrote it from the standpoint of running a business, but let me give you all a little insight. Everything that you do every day is your business. It's your household business. And you should be running your household business just like you would run a business. It needs to be profitable. You need to have income, revenue, expenses, right? And you need to understand how all of those things go together. You need to understand how it's on your profit and loss statement. You need to know if you're winning or losing. You need to know how to apply for a loan in the event that you need a loan. And you need to know how to pay for things. This is an excellent, excellent book on that because it's very simple in how he talks about those different aspects. And I think it's something that would definitely bless everybody's life. So definitely if you get the opportunity, pick this one up, Seeing the Big Picture. We're going to continue to highlight books because, as you all know, I'm a big proponent of reading and learning things and sharing. Reading, learning, sharing. So that concludes tonight's show. Listen, I need you. Most times I don't ask for stuff, but this week I'm asking. Next week, 8 p.m., next Thursday night will be our 50th episode. 50th. I've seen some people in this short space of time that I got to my 50th episode. I've seen some people come and go in this space already. Podcasts and what they're going to do. They do music. They do this. They do that. Come and go. And I get it because that might not have been their passion. That might not have been where their gifting is. My gifting is I got 950 shows to go. So we're going to be celebrating next week our 50th episode. I'll be pushing out some marketing and posting some ads and reminding people all this week. And so next week, just, make sure you push that out to people, let people know. Come tune in next week. You can, reach out to us, congratulate us on making 50. That's a big milestone in the podcast world. We're going to have 50 episodes that we can upload to YouTube. And we got 50 episodes that we're doing what? Helping people. That's all this is about. It's about helping people. Tonight we talked about life insurance and we talked about credit. Those two things, if you just learned those two things and replayed this show and did the things that I shared with you and learned the fundamentals of both, don't let nobody talk to you about term versus whole life. Get something. Just get you something. Cover yourself. Be covered, right? Be covered. Even if it starts off with something small like a final expense policy, and then you get another policy that's a big policy like, hey, I want to, leave some money for the kids and so on and so forth. Credit, learn those 5 fundamentals. Learn those 5 fundamentals because once you learn those 5 fundamentals, I promise you, and I'm telling you from experience, you can make things change a lot quicker. You can work within the system and you'll know how to play cards a lot better because then you'll understand that game and it won't matter what they're doing because you'll understand like, hey, I know what this is. I know how to play the game. So I want to thank you all for joining this week. Next week, 50th episode of the Daily Bread Radio Show. We're going to invite everybody that's on Facebook Live, everybody that's on YouTube Live, everybody on DKM Radio. We're going to invite everybody to come and celebrate with us next week because it's going to be an outstanding time. We're going to have a bunch of fun. Next week, I don't know if I can hold, I'm going to try to keep it together next week, but next week might be, I'm going to give a disclaimer. Next week might get a little crazy because that's what we do. It might get a little crazy. I'm going to just be honest. That's what we do. We have fun.
Crazy.
What you mean? That's it. Yeah, man. Hey. clean fun.
Okay.
Good, clean. That's what we do. It's not better than laughter. Laughter is like therapy. It's the best therapy out there. So we will definitely be having some fun next week. And if you all want to join us, make sure you tune in to the Daily Bread Radio Show every Thursday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on DKM Radio, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. We'll see you all next week. And hey, start taking some of those steps. Call in next week and let me know if you just start talking to somebody about a policy. You start putting some things in place and talk. Call in. We're gonna start having some side meetings where we can invite people like an Odell to come in and we do like like a webinar where we get a group of people together and we talk about credit. So we ain't gonna be on the air doing the daily bread. We're gonna just be in a small group and just say, hey, let's talk about this. What's going on? How you do this? How you do that? And then we all come up. We all are gonna benefit from that. So that's coming too. That's coming too. Y'all have a beautiful week. Have a beautiful weekend. And hope your team draft who they need to draft. Oh man. And hope you get to be the number one draft choice. You be your own number one draft choice. It ain't over. Keep dreaming. Keep striving. Keep your hot. Keep your eyes focused up high. All right. Love y'all. Peace. Help your children. I'm turning my microphone on.
Y'all want to hear you sing, man?
Children.
Who you think want to hear you sing?
Look up the
Oh,
ball
Lord, see what I mean?
by the side of the road.